survival versus thrival. I said survivals are based on fear and self-preservation. It's a very tight, closed space. It's hard to move. It feels constricting, panic, that kind of thing. Not a lot of action there. And thrival is based on possibility and growth. But the question that came up is, okay, great. So how do I shift from one to the other? And the reality is, too, and the part two, the question was, can I be in survival in some places and thrival in other in my life? Absolutely, 100% yes. And so I have a 3-step process that I tell people to do when you realize where you are, and especially if that where you are is survival. And so number one, the cool thing is the minute you recognize that you're working out of a fear or a self-preservation or a let's just make it to the next hour, minute, week, or through the next year, you're in survival. And so like any other thing, the minute you recognize you're in it, then you can actually take action on it. And so step 2 that I told her was that you have to do something that's called reframing. And when I say reframing, what I mean is taking what you're doing and seeing why the current context you're thinking about isn't going to work. So let me give you an example. In that, let's say you're in a situation at your office and you have a terrible boss, and all you're doing is trying to survive each day of work and come out with your job intact. Okay? So step 1, you recognize like, wow, I am just literally getting up in the morning, trying to get through the day and coming home. How do I reframe that? Reframing would be looking at saying, wow, what is my long-term goal for my career or my life or how my days go or even what I want from my relationship with my boss, and saying, okay, I get I'm surviving, but what do I want? And so maybe something you want is better communication with your boss, because maybe your boss is beating you up for not communicating enough. So once you have a reframe, it's like, oh, my goal is actually communication. Then you can actually say, okay, what is something I could do that would enhance the communication so instead of my boss pouncing on me all the time, I'm actually being proactive. And so you might be, I'm going to set up a weekly meeting with this boss, have a briefing, tell them what's going on so that instead of waiting for them to come in my office and pounce on me, I'm proactively communicating forward. Now, one of the things that's important about take action, because it immediately shifts you into thrival space, is action doesn't have to be big. 5 minutes alone will literally pull your mind out of survival to thrival. And so really, really great question, because it takes very little action on your part to actually shift from survival to thrival thinking. Another thing could be you decide you actually don't want that job anymore. So an action you can take is you start looking for another job. But again, once again, then you are shifting out of just surviving and actually looking for growth and possibility in your future.